Out that the neo-Marxist left and the hard left have done quite a number on the U.S. reputation around the world, and radical Islamist broadcasts haven't helped either, and no doubt some of our own missteps in foreign policy have hurt us as well. But a lot of the broadcasts that you get out of totalitarian regimes against the U.S., and certainly a lot of the broadcasts that I listen to, the translations of radical Islamist broadcasts, have to do with issues other than whatever missteps we have made in foreign policy. And over the years, I think it's become very, very clear that if we want to engage, and certainly we did a lot of this during the Cold War, if we want to engage and set a stage for an outcome where people really understand and have an opportunity through surrogate radio to get other information, we have to use instruments like RFL. We have to use Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty models. Where we didn't use it, and I carried legislation to broadcast into the former Yugoslavia, we were not able to get that up and running until the bombs were falling on Serbia. I spent years trying to get it implemented. The former Yugoslav desk was opposed. Serb interests were opposed to us doing that, so all people heard in the former Yugoslavia was hate radio. And I remember a Croatian journalist with tears in his eyes saying to me when I was in the former Yugoslavia during the Civil War, he said to me, you know, finally the radio was up and running, but for all of those years, unlike in Czechoslovakia, people weren't able to hear the other side of the story. He said in Czechoslovakia they split the country by plebiscite without the loss of a single human life. And he said, I credit that to the ideals that Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty gave people, and the Slovaks and the Czechs were able to work this out, unlike the wars that are raging here in the former Yugoslavia, where we're working it out to the death. And he said one of the great errors you made was in not getting those broadcasts up and running. I also authored the legislation for Radio Free Afghanistan broadcasts, but we didn't get those up and running until after Massoud's death and until after it became crystal clear to the United States, after 5 years of trying to get it implemented, that it was important that something offset Sharia Sharia broadcasts, the hate radio broadcasts that the Taliban were running, that were funded, frankly, through Al-Qaeda and other radical Islamist organizations. That kind of broadcasting, by the way, is all over Central Asia. I carried the legislation to expand Radio Free Asia broadcasting. And again, it is very disconcerting, and one of the issues we should look at, a U.S. company out of Texas sold the technology to China to help them block the broadcasting. Now, what we've done is on Tinian Island, erected the largest transmitter in the world. We have new methodologies, but we've got to keep ahead of these regimes because repressive governments understand something we take for granted, and that is that the free flow of information is a mortal threat to be attacked constantly. And these stringers that we have on the ground, like Chairman Wexler, I've talked to some of these stringers and some of these folks that we have at headquarters in Prague. I mean, the risks that they're taking in these countries to get information out there, and what is done in terms of the great bravery that they show, but the threat under which they operate shows the amount of, I think, thought that we have to apply in terms of trying to protect them, getting resources deployed, and blocking this jamming as we go forward. So I'm very much cognizant that, you know, they say to control information is to control the battlefield. In Afghanistan, that is going to be increasingly true because the amount of influence that the Gulf states are putting in terms of resources into the hands of radical Islam in that area. Fortunately, 70% of the Afghans now listen to Radio Free Afghanistan, but all through that region, people are listening to Sharia radio still, and it's a war of ideas, and you gentlemen are going to have to be part of the solution to this. And Chairman Wexler, thank you again for this hearing.
Thank you. Mr.